You've probably heard excerpts from Dvorak's Ninth Symphony. I mean, it's very famous. It's the symphony for the New World. After Dvorak traveled to America and saw these wonderful things around here, he decided to write a little symphony about our neck of the woods, and it became a little bit famous. And it's got a very famous trumpet excerpt in the fourth movement where the movement starts a little bit chaotically, and then the trumpet section carries the tune in gloriously. Both of them in unison at first, and then the second time through, the first trumpet jumps up an octave and does the same thing, 8v8. A big catch with this melody is that although it's something of a fanfare, and of course you want that heavy, percussive, articulated attack, you don't want to clip the notes off prematurely. It really relies on a full-bodied, really blown consistently through airstream to play this melody. And there really aren't that many spots for breathing. You should try and phrase 4 bars at a time if possible. You shouldn't breathe after every 2 bars because that'll chop up the phrasing, make it flow a little worse. There is a possibility for the first trumpet to sneak a breath before the triplet when they're playing the 8VA version because you really do have to nail that C sharp, let's be real. In general, the purpose of the lower members of a section in an orchestra, especially when we're talking about wind sections, is to really provide a solid foundation for the upper player to sit on, and this is more true almost than anywhere else in the repertoire here, because the two trumpets start in unison here, they're playing the same octave, and it really is the job of the second trumpet to carry a little bit, so that the first trumpet can then, catch the breath they need, maybe take the horn off the chops for a beat, and then really sail on the top octave. And when they play in octaves, the second trumpet still needs to be really, really present. It needs to almost be louder than the first trumpet. I'm going to do a little bit of a demo with sound concepts and how the first trumpet should play versus the second trumpet, in my opinion. If you're playing the melody the second time through and you have the second trumpet part on your stand, your first note sounds like this. Now, how do we visualize the sound in this case? We want it to be very broad, very round, very encompassing almost. I mean, the trumpet section really leads the orchestra for these, 16 bars. It's not much, but it's definitely something, and you really need to make it count. So I envision sort of this gesture. Fill up the room. That kind of thing. Now, if you've got your first trumpet part on your stand, the second time through the melody, your first note sounds like this. And you really have to blend with the second trumpet for that, and sort of, if they've established a good foundation for you, you can think more like this, rather than like this big, all-encompassing sound. You can think of projecting through over the top of the second trumpet. That sort of thing. So if you compare the differences in raw volume between the two parts, it might sound a little bit like this. The lower octave is going to be a little bit louder if you do it right, because the high octave pretty much automatically projects, but it's super duper important for the lower part to establish a good foundation for the upper player to just sit on, not worry about having to overblow to make themselves heard, etc. A big part of the reason why second trumpet sort of has to carry in this excerpt is because in the lower octave where the trumpet plays more naturally, I suppose, you can use a little bit more air behind the notes. You can take, a full inhale and really use it up, whereas when you're playing in the high octave, you sort of tend to take a full inhale but sit on it a little bit more. You don't use it all up at once, and you don't get as much, breadth in your sound necessarily, although you can project a lot, but that's sort of a blessing and a curse of the high register because it makes the high register really easy to overblow, and when you overblow the high register, allow me to demonstrate. It gets crass, it goes sharp, you blow your chops open, and then pretty soon you find that you can't even play that note because you've just completely blown yourself open. Your chops can't form the right seal. Your aperture is just too wide. There's no control. And that's a big part of the reason why the second trumpet has to, really pack a punch so that it can provide the volume. And the first trumpet can just sit on top and provide the projection and the, whoa, glorious high trumpet thing. At the end of the day, I wholeheartedly believe that playing a second or third trumpet part in a symphony orchestra is just as hard, if not maybe even harder, than playing the first part. It presents its own set of challenges because as the principal trumpet, you get to sort of lean on your section a little bit. Sure, you have to dictate articulations, note lengths, dynamics, etc. So that is a challenge, but you can also lean back on the section a little bit for support if you have a good section. If you play second or third trumpet, you're being leaned on. And it's really important to realize as a second trumpet player that your worth is equal to the first trumpet player. I mean, if the trumpet section is carrying a tune in octaves, really carrying it for the rest of the orchestra, it is the job of the second trumpet player to have sort of the meat in the sound and really be the star attraction. And then when, principal trumpet joins in on the higher octave, it's woo, fun, high notes. We all love high notes. I hope this video has been helpful for some second trumpet players out there. Let me know what other subjects you would like me to cover in the orchestral world or out of it, because I really enjoy discussing this stuff, and I think it's important for young players to realize, because a lot of second trumpet players naturally just back off on their sound because they think, oh, I'm second trumpet, they don't want to hear me. No, they really do, and it's important for the principal trumpet to have that solid foundation to play over, because it's really like empowering to have a lower trumpet section that really packs the punch, because then you just don't feel like you're working so hard, and when everybody shares the load equally, the job becomes a lot easier.